pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I see a pretty good crowd here tonight, even though it's rainy and bad half the time today. If it's okay with the rest of council, if I could switch in our regular agenda, A for B, so we can get Mark Williams freed up a little quicker. If that's okay with y'all, I'd need a motion to approve it as with the change.
I'll make a motion that we change item B up to A for the agenda.
Okay. Second,
Second.
Shay got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We got any public comment? None wrote down. Anybody for public comment? Hearing none. Moving along, approval of our consent agenda by motion, please.
Mayor Council, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Jeff. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Shay. Any more discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, we're gonna move to our regular agenda, B, our presentation from Mr. Mark Williams.
Thank you very much. Love the efficiency here of the council. I love to see things move along quickly, and I'm gonna try to follow suit with that. I appreciate the opportunity to come present tonight. A lot of this, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, I think this particular council is pretty well aware of what Ag Agency has done in the past and some of the things we're getting going now. This may be more for the audience and perhaps some of the staff as well. I'm gonna try to go through it pretty quickly. But if you've got questions at any time, just stop me and I'll try to address them. Organizationally, we've really had the same structure since 2013. We started back in 2011, but since 2013, we've been set up as a nonprofit. It's a public-private partnership, just like Partnership for Economic Development. And Mills River has been with us since the beginning as one of our public partners, and we appreciate that very much. We run about 67 private members, and that changes from time to time. And then we have 17 board members. Mr. Young is represented on our board now, and we've had other family members of council members on the board as well. But that changes periodically. We'll be looking at new board members coming up. We have Mills River as a whole represented of a 17-member board. 4 of those are actual residents of Mills River. Here's kind of a list too of our general members in terms of businesses within the town that are part of our private membership. You recognize, I'm sure, all of those names there. And then there's the 4 members of the board that are representing Mills River. I know Kirby doesn't live out here, but he's pretty vested. Mission has been the same. It's to preserve and grow agriculture and agribusiness throughout the county, not just in Mills River, but we've tried to do that primarily through the approach of bringing opportunities in that will help profitability. It's hard to outpace the growth that we've seen and the pressures that we've seen in terms of residential development, other development, just as a town faces. It's very rapid because people love the area. Part of, I think, the reason that you've come up with a farmland preservation program and the county is on track to do that, not us, but the county as a whole, has been because we've just been so outpaced. We feel like we've done a lot in our organization to preserve farmland, even here in Mills River. But whenever you start looking at property values as they are, it's great pressure. Just the appreciation of value makes it very difficult. So every tool that we've got out there to help preserve farmland, we want to try to utilize it. How do we achieve our mission? This is kind of a 7-point deal. with just the development part, bringing new businesses in, which we've done some of that. We continue to. That's been a lot of a focus. Those things take time. A lot of times, we may average a couple of years when we first start working with a project. Provide just general business support. I'll expand on it as we go through this program. I mean, it's a powerful program, but general business support for the industry, and just like identifying marketing opportunities, production opportunities for those existing operations, and seeing what we can do to assist in those ways. Education, development, and just community involvement. And, that may be bringing folks out that are unfamiliar with ag operations, touring them through facilities. We do a lot of that. Mills River becomes a circuit for us because of such a cluster here of different operations. We do that very frequently. And then just general promotion of the industry that comes through sometimes through advertisement, through social media, things of that nature. And then the biggest thing that I think that, and I think really the most important part, we can't emphasize it enough, and that's the relationship building. It's so much driven, ag community is a pretty close community as it is, but just the building of relationships within the community between farmers and buyers, between packers and process side of things, and also even within the service industry, and making those connections. And oftentimes it's producer that don't know one another necessarily and have opportunity for those contacts. It may be linking somebody in Mills River with somebody in Edneyville, and we see a lot of synergies from that. As a whole in Henderson County, we figure we're right on the brink of about $1 billion industry for the county. And most of that, is not so much in terms of the receipts from the actual production, but it's from what we call the value added side of things. That's everything from, well, I'll use an example like Lever First, doing the repack operation. They're growing a lot, but then they're packing and packing for other growers. But it's all part of the industry, and it's part of the hub that we see here. The agritourism piece, can't understate that either, because that's a big part. We see everything from monthly to Apple Festival and events like that. Certainly bring a lot of money, a lot of revenue to the county as a whole. Total employment figure about 5,400 jobs, and multiplier effect of that. Most people, even through NC State and their economic department, say about 2.8. So that really brings the job up to about 15,000 that you can tie back to agribusiness in some form or fashion. For the county, we figured that this is from our direct projects that we've been a part of, not what's already here or what's taken place even in the way of growth that we really weren't directly involved with, but of direct involvement. We can point back to $193 million worth of capital investments that we've taken part in. To the county, that's $832,000 in tax revenue. And in addition to that, $2.5 million just in grants received for overall projects, and that they're everything from sewer lines to small projects of doing videos for websites and things like that. Then in terms of transactions and property that I oftentimes get involved with, almost like a broker that's not paid, but at least not a commission out of it. I'm paid on salary, but we could point to over 1,000 acres that, at least for the time being, that we've had a part in being able to preserve. Didn't go into easement, but it's property that has been available, been on the market, and had we not been able to match somebody as a buyer still in the ag industry, would very likely have gone into development. That's amounted to like 35 parcels of land, and new job creation 585. Agriculture in Mills River, I think I don't have to tell you all, what's here, produce, greenhouses. I mean, it is very diverse. Don't have apples over on this end of the county, but certainly the greenhouse has been huge. That growth opportunities have been huge. Produce continues to be big. The one there that saddened me a little bit is, the dairy farm. You see, I've had farms. I marked out that S on there because now we are down to one, and that's my corn. And that is the last ever, at one point in time, over 200 dairies in Henderson County. And now we're down to one dairy. That's kind of a sad day for that, but that's the times we live in. But we do have a great diversity, and I'm throwing there too, research and development, and forget sometimes about our research station over here. And, that's part of the town as well. So let's break down, so I've showed you the county and how impacts have been on the county, but from the standpoint of Mills River specifically, we can point to $21 million in capital investment. And looking at the tax rate of 17 cents per hundred breaks down to return. Just again, this is just on the projects we've been directly involved with. I didn't count a Flavor First. I didn't count VWI. I didn't count any of those. Those were existing operations. This is new stuff that was brought in. So that's $36,000 a year, and then on top of that, utility improvements, $2.5 million. New jobs created 280. Land preserved, we can point to 408 acres. And I always like to throw in there that economic development oftentimes is associated with incentives coming in the form of tax deferment. And we've not had any of those. So we've not approached the town about that. So there's not been any loss of that revenue to the town. Just, some of our projects are just logos from some of the projects that we've done. Some of those are directly in Mills River, so I'll kind of go through some of those more specifically. Tri-Hisnal was one of our early projects, and one that we've been very proud of and continue to see it grow. They doubled in size, I guess it's been a year and a half ago now. So plans are to keep expanding. There's room there for them to expand. I think, again, most everyone knows, but that is a partnership between Israeli company, Italian company, and then domestically, we've got a company that has ties both in North Carolina as well as a bigger group out of California. So it's been a great partnership, and we have the opportunity to be able to help assemble those companies and to bring them here and to grow the young plants, the grafted vegetable plants from both watermelon and tomato, and expanding into some other areas as well. So we're pleased that they've had some success there and hope they continue to have more. There's the facility that's before the expansion. So basically look at that and look at double that size now. Bold Rock, that's been kind of a good and bad. The good is that hey, we've got a thriving business. Hopefully it's been a good revenue generator for the town, and seems to be a pretty popular site even to this day. We helped with locating them on the site over there, primarily because we saw an opportunity to be able to sell apples. Unfortunately, they're not buying apples locally now, which we'd love to see. So any influence the town may have on that and the encouragement for them to buy the apples locally, we'd love to see go back to that. But this is the founder, and they sold the company now to a bigger company out of Charlotte. So that's when the change occurred. But we'd love to see them go back to buying local apples. Here's one that you may not know that name because you see the logo on the building there. It's a different company. I'll spend just a little bit of time here. Norse Farms, sometimes they pronounce it, they're the company that's based out of Massachusetts. So I never know, it's spelled Norse, but they oftentimes pronounce it nurse. So either one, I suppose, works. Lakeside Produce, we located them on that site there on Latson Road. It's not in the town, but it's right on the line. So it has some impact, I'm sure, on the town. I'm sure you get calls about it from time to time. The facility we put in there to begin with was Canadian based. And to make a long story short, they were growing tomatoes and cucumbers, and they had some difficulties with the tomato virus, which can be very devastating, not in this facility, but in their Canadian operation. It forced them into a position to have to liquidate some of their facilities. This was a facility not part of their core business, so that was going along the market. I personally had opportunity to be involved with showing that property. I would say at least 20 potential buyers, international buyers, not just here locally, but folks from overseas, people from Canada, many people. Norse was a company that we saw as being a really good fit. So we worked them pretty hard to come here, and they're going to take this property. They will continue to to grow there in the greenhouse. And what they're doing is if you don't know, they're producing plants. They are a propagator of berry plants, of all kinds of berries, every kind of berry you can imagine. And so they will continue to grow their business here. They're big in Massachusetts, which is their home area, been in business for 90 years, well-established company. And we think they're going to be a great partner, and we think that they will continue to expand. That's very likely as they expand here, that they may cross over into the town line. We think that there's some opportunities there, and we'll continue to encourage that. They do not just greenhouse growing, but they do field growing as well. And so a lot of it is probably about half and half field production. Essentially what they do is grow the plants out, very automated. We'll go in and do cuttings of the tips of these plants, and then producing plants that they're selling as young plants to folks that we would know of, like Driscoll Berries, for instance. If you buy berries in the grocery store, they're growing plants for those companies, so growing for big companies. But we've also got some berry growers here in the county. They're more in the Apple area, a couple of pretty big blackberry growers. We think that there's more opportunity to expand for more growers, because you can come in and you can get pretty good on small amounts of acres, maybe 5 acres, pretty labor intensive, but there's some good opportunities there. So we're excited about that with Ken. Ohalo, that one's kind of flown under the radar as well. I bought what was originally Plants Direct, and then 2 or 3 owners later, Guy Herbs owned it. And had it on the market, take it off the market. This company approached me. They're outside of the California area. They're into genetics, and they are doing research in both sales too, with potatoes and with corn. They're doing some strawberry work. They can basically work with anything. So a lot of plant development. They're working already very closely with other folks within the community, and will continue to. I might just share, Shane's husband Jason is doing some work with them right now, doing some trial work and trying out some different stuff that they're producing. So again, love the synergies that we get, where things spill over in one company working with another company. There's opportunities there. They have invested already $9 million, and that goes directly towards tax base. And if you can just about look out the window and see that they're already doing some more expansion and adding some more buildings over there. They love the area. They feel very welcome here, and we think that they're here to stay. General business support, mentioned that, working with new and existing operations, and we say large, small, members of our organization, non-members, because we do get public funding, and we try to be there for both. I do a lot of things that you might even think of. Even it takes so many calls just trying to qualify people or help people see what qualifies as agriculture. What criteria? I mean, I won't go into it, but you got about 4 different things from a planning standpoint, and as far as like any sort of exemptions people might get for ag purposes. So just vetting people and helping people see what does it take to actually be a farmer, and helping give some guidance there. Things like gaining exemptions for farm sales tax. So these are programs that are all available. Not everybody knows that. Present use value assistance, where they can enter into programs to save some, at least on the real estate portion of the tax. Voluntary Ag District, we encourage enrollment there, just to let public know that it's a farming district if somebody's in that program, so that if they're moving in, they know there may be some smells, there may be some noise, there may be some things that are not always pleasant. Any sort of zoning issues, certainly we'll try to provide assistance in those areas, permitting, labor and housing, all of that. So just in the general sense, we try to provide support where we can. Trying to identify new marketing opportunities. Again, just a few names up there. Some of those you can see Flavor First. We'll link up with a grower with another grower if they're selling and buying and reselling. So we've had about 24 that we would say pretty notable. Some come, they go, but that's just the nature of it. As was a group from Greensboro there with Texas Pete, looking to try to promote some opportunities for them to buy some tomatoes from Flavor First. Other involvement, I mentioned education. Yeah, we do routine, I look at there, I think, James, I think that's you in the green shirt there. We do meetings frequently. We've kind of been on pause here for a while, getting ready to start back. We do like a listen and learn session for folks that are membership. We take people out to operations. You can see there, I think we're at Tri-Distal there in that left-hand picture. We'll bring speakers in to talk about, topics that are relative. We again, you see going out to farms and things of that nature. That one on the left side, actually, we brought in folks from the ADFP group for North Carolina Department of Ag to talk on farmland preservation. So and try to educate people. Advocacy and public relations. We stay in tune and in touch with our political leaders. There are a couple of meetings there you see with our two senators from the state. And we're able to oftentimes attract them to the area to come meet with us and try to have some influence there. And there is the new dean at the bottom right. That's some of the head team of the North Carolina State College of Ag and Life Science. That's the dean there, the new dean on the right. So we stay in touch with those people too. Then just general promotion, website stuff, few ads in the papers here and there. It's not our primary goal. Certainly we're not really looking to do that on an individual basis. It's really more of a broad spread. We're really about, the organization is really about promoting the industry as a whole, rather than just individualized support. And then too, we continue to hold the seat there on the Mills River Partnership Board and stay actively involved there where I can. Again, we're going back, just building relationships, the synergies. I love that definition. You're working together to create something greater than either of you could do alone. And I love to see that happen. And we've seen a lot of it. We know the ag community is small in numbers. So if people are not joining together, working together, then missing opportunities to really remain viable. In fact, I think Mr. Young had mentioned at one of our meetings, critical mass. If we don't maintain a strong industry as a whole with ag, we can begin to see a lot of negative things come of that. We may not have, some of our equipment dealers may not be here if we're not big enough to support that as an industry, which means then you got to go somewhere else. And then the prices go up for supply. All of those things. We lose buyers because we don't have volume. So it's important, not just our big growers, but our small growers consolidated, make a difference. And those numbers are truly important. This is just a little chart I did to kind of show interaction between companies. You'll recognize some of these. Those are some of our projects there, kind of in the blue boxes. And you kind of see how we've linked. I didn't get specific names on all the service providers, but we've got folks in the area that actually have become members because they see the benefit of agriculture. And in some cases, they've actually seen personal benefit of being involved with some of these projects, whether it be grading or surveying or even the building side. And then between farms that we see a lot of that. Growth opportunities, this is just from my perspective. We've already seen the greenhouse production. We know too that can be limited because we have a limited amount of flat land and suitable land. So there will come a time very, very soon where that's going to slow way down. But there's still some opportunities there. And even if we're not doing, let's say greenhouses, we've got lower tech controlled environment, which would come in the form of what we call high tunnels. There's open-sided plastic, metal frames that's covered with plastic. So there's opportunity for that. And some more intensified farming practices that we see. It doesn't affect Mills River, but in the apple growing community, the trellised orchards, we're seeing the older style orchards go away where you have low density settings of trees to where it's becoming higher density. In fact, one grower today in a meeting was talking about he's going from 250 acres and he's dropping his acreage down to 100 acres, but he's changing his settings so that he can still produce the same volume of apples on less than half the acreage. So we're having to learn practices like that too, as less land is available. Vineyards are certainly, part of that. And then plastic culture, when you see the plastic being laid in the field, those are practices, and we've had them around here now for a while, but those continue to be viable solutions to just today's markets and growing and production methods. Processing value added, we have seen wineries and cideries. That's not been, we just have the cidery over here with Bulldog. Wineries have been something we've seen more on the eastern side of the county just because of the topography. But we see plenty of opportunities here for more packing facilities, storage and distribution, and I cannot underestimate the value of our farmers markets. So again, I commend Mills River for what's been done, Lee and others have been very much engaged in that. And that translates over to direct farm markets as well. I'll give the apple folks again as an example because they've been doing it for years. When I have a little fruit stand, COVID, there were a lot of bad things happen with COVID, but there were some good things happen for agriculture, and it sent people kind of out to the farms and brought people back in touch. And two, in today's society, when we see generations not as engaged, as not as much of an agrarian society as it used to be, and now parents want to share that. They remember going to grandpa's farm, and so now they want to share it with their kids. And so we're seeing a whole new generation of folks that are interested in seeing ag operations and being able to go out. So we think there's going to be more and more opportunities there for folks. Challenges, labor is big, I don't care what industry it is, but agriculture is no exception. We certainly do not have the domestic labor, which means now we have to rely on bringing people in on temporary work visas. H-2A is the program that the federal government has designed. It's very expensive. The time you figure your housing costs, which you have to provide all the transportation, it gets to be about $22 an hour. That's a major challenge. That's a lot of cost for labor. So then just government regulations, rising cost of everything, trucking, chemicals, you name it. Weather, seems like we get some pretty inclement weather, and especially when you start getting hail and freezes and inopportune times, that's not good. We're seeing less crop insurance available, so that makes it tough. Land, again, just the high cost and the development pressures, and then changing markets. They're constantly changing and just trying to identify where those are, and that can present some opportunities as well. But we think agriculture is worth saving in Henderson County and in Mills River. And there's just some reasons, the economic benefits. I've shared some of those with you already. Food security, you're going to go back to COVID. We saw a time there whenever you didn't find everything you wanted on the grocery store shelf. If we ever find ourselves in situations like that before, it is really good to be living in an area where you know you got product right here in your backyard. Just the quality of life that it adds, the environmental benefits. It is part of our heritage, part of the heritage of this town and of the county as a whole. A future generation, we have to think about those folks. But the other thing too is, we don't often think about this, is it's a cost savings for government. And here's a little chart that shows this. This came from American Farmland Trust and the publication that they did. Basically shows that on the residential side, for every dollar of service, for every dollar, I'll get this backwards because I've used another chart that's totally, it really shows us the opposite way. That for each dollar of revenue raised, it shows what the expense is to the government. So in this case, residents cost. So residents goes in, putting out $1, it's $1.16 in cost of service. It's pretty clear. You got schools, you got public safety, you've got parks, you've got all those things which create a cost. Whereas business and agriculture, on the other hand, for every dollar they're using, they're only requiring 37 cents in terms of agriculture. So business and agriculture, they pay the business. They make it available. They make it affordable for towns to operate and to be able to conduct business, provide services for the residents. And so from that standpoint, business is important and agriculture is important. I don't want folks to lose sight of that. So getting out to the funding request, our total budget that we're projecting for 2025 is $222,000. The county provides the bulk of that. You see, it's about 2/3, $150,000. For Mills River, last year, you all, had budgeted $17,000 for us. We appreciate that greatly. We're asking for an increase of $1,000. That's that would put your overall funding of the total budget at about 8%. That it's there's no methodology here. It just happened to work out this way. But if you want to translate it in terms of the benefits that we feel like we brought to the town in terms of the increased tax revenue of 36,000, it's half of it. So basically half of what we had brought in as a result. So that was kind of, I guess, the way we came about that. So we feel like that Ag HC still plays a very vital role in the whole scheme of all the ag agencies and what we're doing. It is, again, I think the greatest value that we have is just facilitating these opportunities, connecting people, and relationships. That is what really is key. So that's what I have. Probably went a little longer than I intended to, but it's a topic that near and dear to me, and sometimes I get a little passionate about it. I think they can help me. If you got any questions, happy to answer.
So Mark, what are you hearing from a county level on this farm preservation? Are they stepping up? What are they going to do on that? Are they?
I believe they are. They're, in fact, we'll have a representative on that. Happens to be Cantrell's brother-in-law. He's going to represent Ag HC on it because he's actually put land in farmland preservation. He's actually done these, and so he's got the experience of that. Has taken time to learn the program, understands the program, and so he's going to be part of that. It's a task force.
Okay.
It's been formed, so it's still in that stage. Again, I commend you all's town for identifying the need and addressing it and taking action and doing it pretty quickly. The county has, they've not been quite as strong a consensus, but I kind of feel like that we're kind of getting there now.
Okay.
There's been a lot of pressure too from the farm community to go ahead and move that direction. And certainly just like you found, wherever you did your I can't remember, you don't call it comp plan, but your plan, like they've got comp plan. Yeah, that's what the public is saying they want. They want to see land preserved. They want to see farms preserved. And I think we're finally starting to see some response. How quickly that'll go into place, I don't know.
Okay.
That seems to be the direction anyway. We will not take a direct role in that. We were willing to at one point, didn't really want to, because that's a little bit of a different lane than what we're in. But it's kind of been good. I think as an organization, we drew a lot of attention to it, and by putting on some workshops, and hey, there were just some that felt like that, hey, if our group was part of it, our members might get, maybe shown favoritism or whatever, and that's fine. I don't mind that. So if we can do it just under the county umbrella, that's great. We'll get a seat at the table for people to offer recommendations, and that's good. We just want to see the program work and see it go in.
Good. Any other questions for Mark?
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks very
sir.
much. Appreciate it. Thanks for getting the partnership.
No, absolutely.
You all have been great and great to work with, and look forward to many years to come.
All right. Thank you,
Good
Mark.
job.
You're free to go. All right, Randy, you got a minute to come up here? Come on up. So you got a camera? I'm gonna get Randy's picture.
Catch me off guard. You didn't. I'm on the agenda.
That's all right. I'm gonna get Randy freed up. Unless you want to go. You want to stay, Randy?
Why I point of putting it at the bottom was some of the committee members will visit.
Okay. Well, if you just hang tight there, we'll just keep you the rest of the night. Sorry. I was gonna let you go eat. Okay, we'll move back to the public hearing text amendment. I guess Michael's gonna lead us in that one.
I think you have in your packet the public hearing procedure, so I think we need to start with a motion to enter
Okay.
public hearing.
We can do that. Someone make a motion for us to go into, public hearings?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move into a public hearing for mixed-use residential text amendment TXT 24-01.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
Thanks, Shay. Any discussion? Hear none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none. Okay. So we're in, I guess we'll get staff to lead us.
Thank you. So I just wanted to note first that the public hearing was properly noticed. We ran public advertisements in the Hendersonville Lightning on March 27th and April 3rd. So the reason this text amendment came about is we had a couple of development inquiries mid-late February for resort communities where there would be multiple single-family dwellings on one parcel of land in the mixed-use district. And again, staff's understanding of the zoning code has always been there's a town-wide residential density requirement of one dwelling unit per 30,000 square feet, no matter if it's multiple homes or buildings on one lot of land or whether they're subdivided into those different lots. But when doing research for one of these inquiries, we found that's not the case for the mixed-use district. So the mixed-use district is special because it has exemptions from one dwelling being on one lot. So, and there's been many cases of this where families may want to build another home and they have enough acreage to meet the 1 unit per 30,000 square feet. But if you actually dig into it, basically, if there's no subdivision of land, we can't enforce the subdivision regulations. And that's really all that's in the ordinance right now is, and you'll see that in, I think your first attachment is that the ordinance only stipulates the minimum residential lot size is 30,000 square feet. And because there's no dimensional requirements for residential, no setbacks, nothing else like that, there is no density requirement. Again, specifically just when multiple homes are on one parcel of land. So we thought that was pretty important to address and close that loophole pretty quickly. So really all you have before you tonight is we added, I guess that is attachment A. We added a section B under minimum residential lot size for maximum residential density. And again, just putting in language, mirroring what we already understood to be the case was that one dwelling unit is allowed per 30,000 square feet for detached single family, even if multiple units are on one parcel of land. And then there was one other sentence added, just clarifying that all uses have to have a zoning permit, which again is regular procedure as well. That's about all the explanation I have. Attachment B shows the exemptions that kind of create this loophole. Attachment C is the planning board statement of consistency, and then attachment D is your draft statement of consistency for consideration. I'd be happy to take questions.
Any questions for Michael? So how do you control that 30,000 square foot rule? As long as they've got 60,000 square foot, they're okay to keep it all on the same piece of property.
Exactly. So let's say there's a 3.5 acre tract. We just divide that by 0.69 acres, which is the
Gotcha.
closest equivalent to 30,000 square feet. That's the number of dwelling units that are allowed. And there have been many instances, I mean, it's not common, but where, I mean, some people want vacation properties for families. And so, you know, they want somewhere for their kids, for them, for their aging parents. I mean, there are instances where there are 3-4 homes on one parcel of land, but we always apply that density ratio to make sure we're staying within the bounds of the ordinance. But again, with this inquiry, when we really dug a lot deeper, that's when the loophole was discovered.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none from us. Let me see. We got any property owners, anybody that wants to get up and discuss this matter? No. Okay. Any public comment? Just about it in general? Hearing none. I've got one other question. It probably isn't exactly this, but say if someone come to you and they had the 30,000 square foot, but they're living in a single wide trailer, let's say, and they wanted to build a home. Is there a way to do that and live in that home until they get CO'd? How, if the septic and well and everything worked on their situation?
Hmm.
Could they live in it right up till CO and then we'd ask them to move it?
I think the only situation we've encountered that is when someone was going from a very old single wide to either a newer single wide or a newer double wide. And so
Okay,
we just made a condition of the permit that the old unit be removed.
okay,
With single family homes, I mean, if you're going from a manufactured home or a mobile home to a stick built home, again, I think you could make it a condition of the permit that the other unit be removed.
okay.
But if it's from stick built to stick built, it gets a little trickier because
Yeah.
we can't really force someone to demolish something.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, I need a motion to come out of this public hearing. Then we'll ask for a vote.
Move that we close the public hearing.
Thanks, Shay. Second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Sandra. All right, any more discussion? Hear none? All in favor? Aye. So we're out of the public hearing. Oh, we can free to discuss amongst ourselves just a little bit, or I'll take a motion. Just how to move on this
A motion that we approve the text amendment
as written.
as written.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any more discussion? Hearing,
I'm grateful to the staff for finding the loophole and addressing it. in
Yeah.
all manner, so thank you.
Jeff second. Yep. All right. So we got first, second, any more discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay.
And then just as a reminder before we move on,
Consistency.
consistency statement and then the actual ordinance.
Okay. Anybody slick enough to remember those?
Mayor Gantz, I'll move that we adopt a statement of consistency of the comprehensive plan for text amendment 24-01 as presented.
I got a first. How about a second?
Second.
Thanks, Shay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. You got that other one in front of you?
And the last one, if it's council's pleasure, would be adopting ordinance 2024-03. Making this text amendment change.
Okay.
A motion that we adopt, would you say 2024-03?
Okay, got a first. How about a second?
I'll second.
Sandra second. Any discussion about it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Moving right along. When staff gets caught up, we'll look at our Mills River Park expansion master plan adoption.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a recap of how we got to this point today. So as you know, and I think most of the public knows at this point, the town has purchased the 70 acres adjacent to existing Mills River Park. And as part of that process during our due diligence, we wanted to make sure we were in a position to apply for Parks and Recreation Trust Fund money in our next cycle to help cover part of the costs of that land. And so we applied for what's called a waiver of retroactivity to be able to typically with the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant, you cannot purchase the property before you receive the grant. And so, but they do have this condition where we got a waiver of retroactivity saying we could purchase the property and then in turn develop a master plan and apply for land acquisition money for the purchase of that property. And so once we close on the property, we've been working really hard to meet our grant application deadline, which is May the 1st. And so we have gone through public input in multiple ways. We've met with this board, we've met with our Parks Advisory Board to come up with what I think is a really great plan for that property next door. So with us, we have Sarah Burrows with Sage Design, who's helped us develop that plan. She's going to go through kind of how we got to this point, go over the park master plan with y'all. And if you have questions, feedback, but our hope for this evening is that you all will adopt the park master plan and then direct staff to apply for the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund money so we can get that application moving. So, can you hear us, Sarah?
I can, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We cannot hear you.
Okay.
Get the TV volume.
I am up all the way. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you now.
Got you now.
Great. All right, very good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me this evening and also for all of your participation along the way. It's been a fun process for me and for our team. And so I'm excited to be here today.
You could hold on
to,
1 second.
Hold on,
We're
hold on
having
one-
a
yeah.
Where's the echo?
Okay.
Hey,
so-
Sarah, go ahead again. We just have to mute ourselves while you're going to avoid the feedback.
Okay. Am I echoing now or am I okay? It's good? Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Am I good to go? Thumbs up, Nicole? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and walk through our process. Just highlights. I know you all have been involved in this process, and I appreciate that. I think it gives us a really solid plan to have community involvement along the way, staff involvement, park advisory committee involvement, and council involvement. It just is a really well-supported process. So thank you for getting us to this point. So as you know, we're talking about the expansion area and the master plan associated with that, and also moving forward with applying for the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund as part of the acquisition for that property. I did just want to highlight the level of involvement that you've had. It's been really great. Just from talking to third graders to
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Hey,
Yeah,
Sarah,
hold
we're
on.
still having a little bit of struggling, so we have
Okay.
ho-
Like a 10-second.
Yes. I'll try it.
What questions y'all have? My biggest one is, once we, say okay to this, as future councils has come on board, and as the citizens of Mills River change, how much change can we put into this park as it gets built out?
So if we apply for the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant and receive it, the only condition on that, because we are applying for land acquisition only, is that we have to begin something on this plan in the next 5 years.
Okay,
It doesn't specify what it is, and best practices would state that every 5 to 10 years you redo this plan because things.
okay,
So, yeah, council would have, nothing on this plan says we absolutely have to do it as this is.
okay.
Other than we have to start something within 5 years if we accept Parks and Recreation from them.
That 5 years from receiving the grant.
Signing the contract of grant. So the grant application is due May, they typically award it late summer to fall. So we have 5 years from whatever the sign date of that contract is.
And I'm right in saying we spend our money, then they give us back whatever, up to whatever they granted us.
In this situation,
We've already spent it, yeah.
So the match for this is the purchase property. So essentially, if we get the grant money, it is just a reimbursement. for the
Okay.
money.
Gotcha. Anything else? No? Well, are y'all ready to approve this master plan?
You want a motion?
Yeah, sure.
I'll make a motion that we approve the park master plan
As presented?
as presented.
Okay.
Can we just for the grant application, Sarah, to be the Mills River Park Expansion Site Master Plan? Just include that into the-
Okay.
Okay.
Somebody second Sanders' motion as it's modified? Sue's got something. Hang on one second. Make sure we're all crossing our T's, dotting our I's.
We also need to approve the resolution.
Two separate motions, or can it be one?
I think in the staff report, it doesn't matter whatever the clerk needs, but I will need approval of the master plan. The resolution would be great, and then just direction, for staff as a separate motion to apply for the Parks and Recreation.
Okay. So to hers, she can add on the resolution.
Okay, add the resolution.
So we're putting those two together. Need a second for that one.
I'll second.
Shay, second that. Any discussion about that before I call for a vote? Everybody understand what we're doing? Everybody understand? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Help us with what you need now.
Make a motion to direct staff to apply for the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant for land acquisition.
I'll make a motion to direct staff for Nicole to apply for the part of grant.
Okay.
And will you authorize someone to sign that?
Who would that be, Nicole?
The
Or-
mayor actually has to sign. So
Okay.
there's,
Okay.
yeah, the mayor has to
Okay.
sign the grant application, and it's already in your folder.
Okay.
Okay.
And to be signed by Mayor Gons.
Okay. I got a first. How about a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Jill. Okay. Any discussion before I call for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank y'all. Appreciate all the hard work, keeping us online. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also like to thank the Parks Committee for all the work they've put in on it and for all the residents that participated in the surveys and gave input. It was a truly a community project.
It was for sure. Anybody need a break or we moving on? Moving on. All right, tax bill mailing follow-up discussion with Laura Lee.
Okay, good evening, council. The background on this agenda item is that the 2023 tax notices were mailed in August 2023. And within a few weeks, it was noticed that we were receiving phone calls from property owners, particularly those who have multiple properties, that they had received some of their notices, but not all of them. We reached out at that time to our printing mailing vendor. They had no real reasons or answers as to why. And as time went by last fall, it was realized that it was random notices, not just those with multiple notices, that had just not been delivered. At that point, we reached out to residents, did some social media postings, put our signs out, and tried to get the word out that if you did not get your bill, to give us a call and we'll let you know, or send another one. And so this spring, I understood that council's been concerned about the perceived lack of delivery. So we did some research here in the office in the last month or two, and attachment A, you'll see the number of delinquent notices as a percent of the total notices. We felt like that was probably the best way to figure out how many notices had not been delivered, and not been paid. And it seems that it's really not, in my opinion at least, statistically significant. Probably 74, there were 74 more delinquent notices sent this past year than on average. And there's a lot of reasons that could be.
So
So
how did we pick the mailing organization that sent the bills out? Was that picked by us or was that picked by the?
it was put out to bid.
Okay,
Oh my goodness, like 7 years ago. We've been using them for a very long time.
okay.
We have never had this problem before. And I reached out to other jurisdictions who use the same printer, and they did not have a problem in 2023.
So they didn't have it on the county level either, just the Mills River thing?
No, anecdotally, we had heard that the county had trouble, but when I reached out to Luke Small, the deputy tax collector there, he said no, they had not.
Wow. Okay.
The problem is there's so many factors, there's so many fingers in that pie. There's no way to tell really who was at fault, what was at fault, how it happened. There's other reasons why people didn't pay their taxes on time.
And we
There's
really
no
don't,
definitive reason.
and we don't have an exact number how many didn't get mailed out because we just don't know.
No,
There's no
because
way
we
to
just
figure,
no.
no way to figure that out.
Right, there's no
Okay.
way to figure that out.
Okay.
How did we pay the mailing company, like per letter that went out, or just like one lump fee?
We pay for the printing of the bills,
Mhm.
and then we pay the postage. And the postage is at a reduced rate because of the volume that we don't pay postage on a 5,000 bill rate. We pay postage on a combined rate of their other,
Municipalities
clients.
all.
bulk
put together.
mail
Okay.
thing.
so we could never get the postage rate that they can get us.
Well, getting at what did we pay for postage and pay the mailing company to send out something that never got sent out?
But
They
we
tell
don't
us.
know if it never got sent out. We just know that it never got delivered. There's the postal service factor in
There's,
there.
yeah,
as
there's
well.
that margin of error too.
Yeah.
My question to you as the tax collector, do you feel comfortable using the same, company again for, where are you at with that?
I think, yes, I think it's worth staying with them. As I said in my discussion, there's other factors here as well. If we check that spreadsheet for addresses that we get from the county, check that a little bit more.
Is there any way to track the Horseshoe Post Office versus the Arden, because there's a overlap, or is that all taken care of and it all coming out of Horseshoe now? I'm wondering if it's
I
coming,
think it all comes from Greenville to Horseshoe.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, then don't even worry with it.
And that's just the Mills River bills,
Okay.
we send bills everywhere,
Sure,
from California to Alaska to
Sure.
the Virgin Islands.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay, I see what
I
you're saying.
wish I had a definitive, this was what went wrong, but there's just no way.
So is there a diversity of those bills? Like, they're not only just Mills River citizens calling saying, I didn't get my bills, there's people from the Virgin Islands, from Alaska.
That's,
Is there a diversity of that also?
we didn't really track that.
Okay,
That's a good question though.
okay. It would just be interesting to know if
It
it's a
would
more
be
local
interesting.
thing, or if maybe a bag just didn't get
Yeah.
to in Greenville, out of Greenville, or wherever, you
Yeah.
know, it would be interesting.
And we really don't know how many weren't delivered. The only way I thought would be fairly, coming up with a quantitative idea is how many, delinquent notices we sent.
Okay. All right.
Be happy to answer any questions
What else we got for? Anything?
if I can.
Well, did the town receive any as undeliverable that come back from the USPS?
We do get some undeliverable, but we keep them and we research addresses, and a lot of times we send them back out again. And if they come back again with that address, then we just put them in a box and keep them.
Gotcha.
No, we really didn't get that many more undeliverables.
Okay.
If anything, I think we got fewer.
But you could see, why it would be tough on us and y'all.
Absolutely.
We get those phone calls, I didn't get tax bills. That mean I got to pay it? Well, yeah, you got to pay it. It's your responsibility to pay it. Well, I'll check on why you didn't get your bill though.
Yeah.
That's kind of tough.
I would like to interject some accountability in the process, because I don't quite understand the mailing company. And I sort of echo what Councilman Cantrell said, is that
Mhm.
are we paying by pieces?
We
So
put
that, we know how many pieces they sent out because they're billing us for it, or,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
what does our contract with this company look like? Did they have any measures of?
They can't guarantee it.
Right.
I mean, once it leaves their facility and they hand it over to the post office, there's no telling what happens to it.
But do you, as the tax collector, get a confirmation they sent out 5,000?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That was what they put in the USPS.
Yeah. It's on the invoice. Yeah.
But we're not paying to track every single one, so.
No.
Right, yeah, we
Yeah.
can't, we can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of stymied by some of the taxpayers that didn't receive bills, or ones that have more than one parcel in the town of Mills River. So, if they own 4, they got 3. Well, the 4th one didn't make it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We don't
And,
quite understand that either.
Uh, And I just,
think-
accountability is what I'm just trying to drive at. Which is
Sure.
why I questioned in the meeting a month or so ago, was
Sure,
just that it
absolutely.
doesn't seem like this is rocket science. That I understand. I don't want to take this on as a town.
Right.
And farming it out to professionals, that, it's just like why you hire a professional to do plumbing or electrical in your house, because you want it done right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're farming out to professional, I don't know what, like I said, what sort of measures they use in a contract to say this is what they'll do, but
Yeah.
it's not getting done.
Well,
So
the
it comes back
thing
on
with
us.
having 4 parcels and only getting 3 bills is the way they batch the addresses. I think it's more complicated than it seems. I may get the file from Henderson County with 5 bills to the same person. But one of them is John Doe, and one of them is John C. Doe, and one of them is John C. Doe with a point at the C, and one is John C. Doe and wife. Those are going to use 4 different envelopes if I send that file just the way it is to the printer. I try to make them all about the same, but legally, there's only so much I can do to influence those names,
And I
to
can
get them
see that.
all in the
I
same
think some of our
envelope.
parcels, like my maiden name's on some,
Yeah,
and some it may just be my initial, and some it may not
Yeah.
be at all.
yeah,
I mean, I know how our properties are dated,
yeah.
so
And they'll all come in separate envelopes.
I think we get.
So it may be that out of those 4 bills, one of them was just a little bit different than the other 3, and that's the one that didn't get delivered.
Well, I guess my hope in all this was that going forward, that when a taxpayer calls and says, I didn't get a bill, or I got some of them and not others,
Yeah,
and I'd like to have an answer besides, we don't know. We're paying to have this done.
yeah.
And it seems to me that if they're being not delivered by the postal service, it'll come back to us anyway.
Sometimes they come back like 10 months
Yeah, I was gonna say
later.
months and months later,
Yeah.
yeah. It could still come back now.
Yeah.
That's,
it
I
could
don't
still
understand
come
why the
back.
ones that had 3 to get there, but not the 4th one, when it was probably same address, maybe in different names, but that the
But it
county has the
Would have
same.
been in a different envelope and, I know, yeah,
Yeah, I can vouch for in the building business, working with people from out of state. I've had checks sent and they'll have to resend me a check and then I'll get that check 8 or 9 months later. So I gets hung up in the machine. I don't know what it does. It looks pristine when I get it, but that money's done been spent and gone.
Mhm.
So I just have to call them and say, hey, guess what? Your check's here.
mhm.
You know, it's crazy how it works sometimes. So it might be in that end of it, most likely.
It could be. And that's the problem. It could be the way we send the data to the printer. It could be the printer's fault. It could be the post office fault.
Wow.
But there's just no good way to pin it down on somebody.
We don't even have a running account of who called in and said they didn't receive one this year, do we?
No.
If it happens again next year, my suggestion would be we start writing those names
That's a
down
really
and
good
maybe we
idea.
can figure it out at a county level and have them tweak that
Yeah.
address box or something on the data that gets sent to everybody. Just in case.
Yeah,
It's something that simple.
it's a good idea. We can certainly do that.
Okay. Do you got an idea? We don't even have an idea how many called in, do we? I know I had 6 or 7 calls myself. Okay. Okay.
We always have people who call in and say
Sure.
they don't get their bills.
Okay.
Usually it's in January when they get the delinquent bill.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
we can certainly write them down.
All good. Any more questions for Arlie or any other staff? Nope. All right, we'll move on. Our financial year 2024 audit contracts.
At a previous meeting, we discussed bids we put out for an audit firm, and you did approve to contract with Good Killian. This is the actual contract. It's written by the local government commission, so we don't have any room to change it. Once we approve the bid, we approve the price. But the way it's presented and the way it's written is boilerplate from the local government commission, and it is the only contract they'd approve. So what I'm looking for is a motion to approve the contract and authorize the mayor to sign. And then I'll handle the other piece seconds afterwards,
Okay.
unless you want to hear both.
Oh. I'll entertain a motion to approve these contracts.
I'll make the motion to approve the contract and authorize Mayor Gantz to sign.
Thanks, Shay. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right. the
Okay, as
second
we've
piece.
discussed in the past, because we also use our audit firm to answer questions and give a certain amount of help. Some years it's 1 or 2 questions the whole year, but the local government commission looks at it as there's potential for the audit firm to be auditing their own work. And in smaller towns, that's more likely, but they set the rules for everyone. So we hire a separate individual to review the auditor's final report, and make sure that it's, well, basically that it's followed all the rules and in compliance. So what I'm looking for here is that we have contracted with Brian Broom in the past, and he is available again this year. He is not increasing his cost, but he is acknowledging there is a new audit firm, so there may be additional meetings, additional information that they ask for. He would not charge us if he needed to meet with them, but if he had to work up a separate schedule, then he would do that at an additional $150 an hour.
Okay.
And you're happy with him?
Yes, he's been very helpful to us. Yes.
Entertain a motion to approve Mr. Broom's contract.
I'll move we hire Mr. Brian Broom to perform our independent review financial reports for fiscal year 2024.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay. When staff gets up, we'll hear from Mr. Malachek on our mixed use zoning discussion.
Thank you, everyone. So the mixed use zoning discussion stemmed out of the request for annexations that we heard last fall. And when the planning board was looking at assigning a potential zoning district to those properties, that's when we really discovered that although mixed use made sense for those properties, it was not compatible or not as consistent with the future land use map designation for those areas. And so really over the past 4 months, that's what the planning board's been specifically diving into. Where are these areas of inconsistency and how do we address those through a rezoning or a text amendment to adopt a new zoning beyond something besides mixed use that has more limited uses and also decreasing the density at the same time. So I'm just going to go through a couple documents first. So as attachment A, we have the town zoning map. It's a little out of date because it's from the 2021 comp plan, but again, you can see that mixed use in green is about 2/3, 3/4 of the town's jurisdiction. And then you have the land use vision map or the future land use map as attachment B as part of the comprehensive plan. And then attachment C is your land use category chart. So looking at attachment B and C, if you look at the light green areas, those are areas for any future use. And again, with input from all the citizens and everyone that participated in the comprehensive plan, those areas were designated as rural residential areas. And if you look in your little chart for attachment C, you can see that the desirable or acceptable uses for those areas are agriculture, large estate lot development, single family homes, schools, parks and public space, but not multifamily, not commercial, and not industrial. Mixed use being what it is, a very unique zoning district allows almost everything by right, including industrial, including commercial, and multifamily. Used to be with special use permit, but now via conditional zoning. So again, how do we reconcile those differences? One of the exercises we went through, which is now attachment D, highlights those areas of inconsistency. So we basically overlaid the zoning map with the future land use map. And what's outlined is in red is where mixed use overlaps with the rural residential future land use district. So again, what mixed use allows, which is a pretty wide open book, is not consistent with the future uses the comp plan calls for, being low density residential, agriculture, single family schools, public parks and public space. And then attachment E, I've shared this with the planning board at every meeting, are specific excerpts from the comprehensive plan basically addressing this issue. Some call for things in line with the mixed use district, allowing uses with residential. Some call for maintaining rural neighborhood areas, so limiting uses. So it's a bit of each. But basically the planning board has gone through this, and at the last meeting, we've had a lot of discussion. We've reviewed county zoning districts. We've put other maps together to look at different areas of the town. We looked at, maybe rezoning the southern half of the town and using the corridor overlay to allow more uses during the road. But after all this discussion at the last meeting on April 2nd, the planning board initiated a couple actions. And again, I wanted to basically make you aware of this and also get some input, because again, this is a large rezoning, a large scale rezoning, a large scale text amendment, changing zoning in almost a third or half of the town. And I just felt more comfortable getting your input before we move forward full steam ahead. So right now, what staff's been directed by the planning board to do from the April meeting is we develop a new zoning district to replace mixed use. And we're going to use the term rural residential. So Mills River Rural Residential Zoning District. This district would more than half the density. So again, right now, just like we talked about in the first item, it's one dwelling unit per 0.69 acres. Now we're talking about 1 unit per 2 acres, so more than double that. And then we're talking about actually having a list of permitted uses. So again, mixed use is unique because it basically says everything's allowed except for these things that need a special use permit and some things we don't want to see at all. But it's a very wide open book. So we're talking about developing this zoning district with a list of uses that mirrors kind of the county R2R, or residential to rural zoning district. So more focus on single family estate lots. There are some allowances for, I think, agricultural businesses, stuff like that. But again, getting away from a kind of free-for-all mixed-use district where almost anything's allowed. And then the other action the planning board took, again, if you look at the future land use map, attachment B would be removing the purple commercial crossroads designation from the area around Ray Hill Road. So commercial crossroads, this was identified, and again, I wasn't here when this was put together, but I think basically they took the two main intersections on Boylston Highway going south, Ray Hill, and then Gash. And Gash has some existing businesses down there. And then again, they also placed this around that area that would allow for retail and other uses besides low density residential, agriculture, and the like. So again, the planning board felt Ray Hill was just not an appropriate place for those uses. And so one of the other actions they initiated was to, again, remove this designation and return all that to rural residential, again, future land use designation. And then the last action the planning board took was to initiate a rezoning request. Can you pull that map up, Kevin? So at the last planning board meeting, we talked about defining a very specific area. We were originally just looking at the southern corridor. Can you zoom in on the red a little bit, Kevin? Thanks. We were originally talking about just focusing on the Boylston Highway corridor from Schoolhouse, Mills River Crossing area south. But again, we had to define the boundary somewhere on the northwest side, so it was suggested we start with South Mills. So right now, this basically defines a rezoning boundary from South Mills, coming down Old Turnpike, crossing Turnpike, going over to Warlick, and then encompassing the rest of the southern part of the town. That whole area in the red would be zoned to this new rural residential zoning district, except for the purple area around the Gash Road intersection, because there are businesses there like Rise Construction, the concrete plant, the Forge Valley Event Center, there's the welding shop, there's the fire stations just north of there, and I think another building with a couple commercial uses. So again, when you rezone someone who's has a commercial operation, but if you rezone them to a district that no longer allows that, they're a non-conforming use, which means you can't do any type of expansion or improve. I mean, you can do normal maintenance, but you can't do any type of expansion whatsoever. So in the interest of trying to protect those businesses and keep those uses intact in that area, the rezoning action for the purple would be making those neighborhood commercial. Neighborhood commercial, again, allowing retail and service uses as long as it's within an enclosed building. Now, the concrete plant, that probably predates the town. Obviously, that's non-conforming. But that's kind of the summary of what the action the planning board's taken. That's a really quick summary of our discussion. I mean, we've had 4 months of discussion about this in depth. But again, wanted to bring it to council and get input about basically everything we've discussed, from density to uses and just your general feeling about the area. Again, rural residential with its limited uses for the future land uses is meant to preserve that rural agricultural feel, which again is one of the primary goals of the comp plan in the southern corridor of town. And so again, the planning board felt, even though we have the UDO process coming up where there will be a lot of public engagement, that it was too important to wait for that to start and then finish, which it's about an 18-month long process. They really wanted to bite this off now and make sure no developments come in that would ruin the nature of this corridor. I'm happy for questions, happy for open discussion, whatever's council's pleasure is.
Well, in discussions up to this point with the planning board and staff, something like the planned storage unit right there on the county line, that's on hold. Would something like that, perceived allowable in rural residential, or is that be considered?
It would not be permitted. So they, I mean, that individual has an application still on file with us that was approved for the self-storage facility, and they have a certain amount of time to pull a building permit. But again, they or any other use would have to apply under the mixed use basically before it changes to get that zoning vested right.
I have some consternation about mixed use is too far to one end of the spectrum. I'm just apprehensive about whiplash and swinging it all the way in the other direction, where something, I understand, some of these, what we call nodes, which are now crossroads, but might be considering something like neighborhood commercial, especially for people that have property along the highway. Granted, there's no infrastructure, but I just hate to swing it too far the other direction as well, where like a closed business, somebody wants to have run a CPA from their home, that currently that won't be allowed in rural residential, correct?
There is still the option to do a home occupation. So I mean, if you ran a business out of your home, and I think it limits it to 25% of the floor area of your home. So again, it's still the residential use is the primary use of the property. You could do that out of your house, but again, you couldn't have a storefront, let's say, where customers
Dollar
are
General,
coming in.
Dollar General couldn't set up out in rural residential along 280
Correct.
without zoning change.
Correct. If this were to change, yeah. And I'm just going to jump in and out. So what I'm hearing is from Mr. Young, possibly allowing more commercial uses, but around the corridor of the highway.
I would have less heartburn if the planning board was looking at some options for landowners along at least the highway.
Okay.
Since there is no water and sewer in a lot of the area that's been outlined on that map, but I don't know how the other council feel about it.
With neighborhood commercial, would the new text amendment we have apply for that, to where would it go through a special use permit?
For multifamily specifically, or
Well,
you're just saying for any neighborhood commercial use?
right.
Well, they're looking at applying neighborhood commercial just around the Gash Road intersection. So again, if we zoned those
So
properties.
those are just, okay,
Yeah, sorry. So everything's mixed use now, but again, because the future land use map has that, the purple blob at the far southern end of town around Gash Road, it basically says, retail should be, allowed in our future uses there. So again, by zoning it neighborhood commercial, they're trying to respect that. And again, it's limited retail business or service within an enclosed building, offices, single family homes, et cetera. But it's not like mixed use or general business where, there are more intensive uses. Now, you could write into the new rural residential zoning district that replaces mixed use, to have things via special use permit, and they don't have to be major special use permits from council. It could be minor special use permits from the Board of Adjustment. So I can't think of an example, but a welding shop in an enclosed building, or a contractor's laydown yard. I mean, those are things we would have to identify specifically, and you could make those special uses in this new district. So you could still allow it, but through a more rigorous approval procedure.
I noticed on that the community or the commercial crossroads, the purple changes ever so slightly from that to what you showed us at the end. Is that like input from landowners around that, or you just said, all right, there's already a handful of businesses right there?
I did that. Again, the planning board meeting was just a week ago, so staff hasn't had time to formally put something together for them to look at. I basically took what was exactly in the purple and the future land use around Gash Road, and then I pulled in the concrete plan. I pulled in Maple View or Valley Mobile Home Park and some of those other existing businesses on the properties there for that potential neighborhood commercial district. But again, that was just me doing that as something for y'all to look at.
I think with this, we're gonna have to have a lot of public input, especially along that south corridor, just because I ain't bashful to say, a lot of them people up there don't even want to be in town. So we definitely need to hear their opinion of it. They're taxpayers too. I think that's what's going to get some things that we may not have thought about brought up. Growing up, I hate to say it like this, but I envision where you come off of Brickyard Road, one of those corners right there either being a drugstore or another store, or maybe even a grocery store at some point. That serves the community. And if we do this and then somebody comes in here and wants to put one there, we'd be spot zoning them, correct? If we would allow that, unless we did something different.
Yeah, if you rezoned all to this rural residential, it would not be allowed, and they'd have to rezone to something else that probably wouldn't be supported by staff or the comp plan.
Exactly.
The public input angle is something I've been concerned about too. And again, it's difficult timing, because with this UDO process coming up, I made the scope very broad because these are difficult conversations we need to have. And I do think the zoning map needs a hard look and some recommended changes. But, and again, I'll just throw this out. We do have a mailing budget, a small one for the planning board. So, I mean, there is a possibility we could send out mailers to some of those areas in the southern part of town now, but then we'd also be doing that again in like 6 months. And so I have a little bit of concern about the confusion between the two processes. I'd prefer to just engage people once. But again, I hear the planning board's point that, there are subdivisions looking at this area, just like the text amendment earlier. There are out of state. I mean, it was a developer from Florida that wanted to put a 50 home vacation rental community out there. So people are looking across the country. And so again, the planning board's concern is, well, how long do we wait how long is the door open with mixed use? And I know we have planning board members here as well. So again,
Right.
feel free to ask questions.
From a logistical standpoint, can you just broad scope change the zone on all these parcels at once?
You can. It's a large scale rezoning. State law controls what we do with public notice for this because, some counties or municipalities, large scale rezonings would be a large area with a large number of properties. So there actually is not a mailing. Well, you could mail all the letters out, but the state recognizes that could be a financial burden. So there's an expanded newspaper advertisement option where basically you take out, I think, a half-page ad in a newspaper with and then over 2 weeks, like we normally do, with a huge advertisement, basically saying Mills River's doing this. We want your input, and that is the requirement, at least on the public notice side, to go through with that. But as long as we have the boundary, and again, that's why we tried to stick to the roads. As long as we have the boundary designated, you can't do a large-scale rezoning like that.
Anyone from the planning board like to get up and tell us any of your thoughts on this? I hate to put you on the spot, but we need guidance. That's what y'all are here for.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Jeff Moore, Chair of the Planning Board. A lot of discussions, and we're not done yet. The balancing act between keeping Mills River, and property rights is something that we're very cognizant of and trying to keep balance. We have talked about a corridor, like an overlay, perhaps 500 feet either side of NC2A, and allowing more uses there, or more commercial, exactly what you were talking about, and balancing that against the feel of a rural part of town. What feels rural? We had a good exercise with some slides and participation of what's rural, what is not rural, and what does it look like. So the thought was, well, if we keep it rural looking and feeling, then do we really want a lot of commercial? Do we want businesses? Do we want retail? So we'd be glad to look at it. We'll be glad to go back. But this is a very big thing. We're talking people's property and making zoning changes potentially. So absolutely, we'll discuss it, until we reach that comfort level. I also would love to have some public input. We're going to talk about it every meeting until something's able to be done. So we'd love to have the public come talk to us. Of course, you all are invited anytime. We would love to have the input as well.
Okay. I understand.
So there are other members of the planning board that are welcome to come up and give their thoughts.
Okay.
My thoughts are to, one of the things we've talked about is parcel size. Do we want to say the minimum size parcel is an acre, acre and a half? We, by consensus, came to about an acre and a half minimum, but that gives me some heartburn, and that personally, if the only way my kids can ever live in Mills River is when I die, they split the property, each of them gets half, or they work out some arrangement, and I'll be dead, it won't matter. So I couldn't afford to live in Mills River. My dad hadn't bought land. So, to have that option to someone who has a piece of property and wants to divide it, are we limiting certain people, say, no, you can't divide it now, it's gotta be. So that's something to think about. However, one of the ways to keep a rural area rural is by larger property, larger parcel sizes. So it's all part of the discussion, and I'd love to have public input.
Gotcha. I'm waiting. Thank you. Anybody's thoughts on this?
I appreciate all the discussion that the planning board's had. I do listen to the meetings, and hopefully the microphones are fixed so we can hear all the conversation, because I like to hear all the conversation. And the concerns I have would be unwanted traffic, light pollution, and lot size, density. And what concerns me on that is if a person only has an acre or 3/4 of an acre, you know, how's that gonna tie them up if we go to an acre or an acre and a half for a dwelling? I mean, are they gonna be grandfathered in?
Yes.
You know, would it be that if they sold land that, the new stipulation would then apply to that land?
Usually with subdivided lots, just like our minimum lot size for 30,000 square feet, it basically says in the code, if your lot was platted before this date, usually the date the town was formed, then it's exempt. And so
Yeah.
the thinking is we would have something like that for this new zoning, that if your lot was platted before, we could even make it the adoption date, you would be exempt from those requirements, but anything going forward would be applicable.
Would there be any kind of stipulations or any kind of arrangements put in there to where if a person owned, say, an acre of land, and as they age out, they want a family member to be close by, so maybe they could put in another home or something that didn't mess with the septic lines and the water, to where they could have another home on site there so they could still stay in their home and have family close? Could they make a special provision for something like
You
that?
can. We don't have that now. So I think I've brought up accessory dwellings before. So basically having a dwelling smaller than the principal dwelling on the property. That's not something that's even defined in our code. So right now, and I have gotten requests for that, an aging parent wants to move on the property. I just have to say, I'm sorry. Even if it's a 400 square foot house, it's
could
still
call
a dwelling.
Granny
Right.
pods.
Yeah, and we have to say no. Now you can write that into the code, and that was something we started conversations about at the last meeting. Usually you can define them as an accessory dwelling. It's not more than a certain square footage, 1,000 or 800 is a common number, or not more than 25% the size of the main house. So again, you want to keep it as an accessory to the main house. That's something that's legal that we can write in, but it's not even in the code at all at this point.
Okay. Well, that would be something I would like considered. And the planning board did a fantastic job with the light pollution discussion that they had, and dark sky, I believe is what y'all called it. I'm very supportive of that, because if you have business or something down near the road, what's up on the hill and stuff behind them, if you've got the downlighting, it's not as offensive to them. So that's all good stuff to consider too.
Anything else?
I like the general direction that's going, I'm all about preserving the rural.
Absolutely.
Excuse the lips. Lips at me. What Shay just said has really been my focus. The public has spoken. It's the future land use map. And they want to see that area rural. And so we had the discussion, is rural the secondary roads? Or is rural when you're driving through town on your way to wherever you go? And the actions, or I'm sorry, the activity that Michael took us through is describing rural and trying to get us to, and one word kept coming up over and over and over and over on that, and that was the word open. And when you head south of Mills River Crossing, it's still fairly open. When you look at Schoolhouse Road or Jeffress, I mean, it's not as open as it was just a short time ago. So I really would encourage everyone to keep that future land use map in the front of your mind when we're having this conversation. And a corridor through there of reducing it to neighborhood commercial and 500 feet either way. We've had those conversations. This is early. Michael suggested we've got so many balls in the air with this conversation that we needed input from you before we try to refine it too much more. Because we didn't want to bring you something we told to start over. We wanted some input.
Right.
Please know that's what we were going for today. That's all.
But there are developers already, I mean, the Fulham tract is
Mhm.
gonna be developed and it's gonna move fast.
Yeah.
That was part of I have a hypothetical question. If I'm a developer and I own a piece of property near the Fulham tract, how long do and we changed this, but I already have it approved how it is now, how long till I am no longer grandfathered in?
It's all based on when you submit the permit. So if you submit the permit and while the permit's under review, the rules change, you are allowed to choose the rules that apply to you. It's called permit choice. If you submit the permit and the new rules are in effect, that's what applies. And same for the old rules. So again, if it's submitted and approved under the old rules or new rules, that's what applies. If it's in the middle of a change, the applicant decides what they want to apply to them.
But there's no
And they're gonna-
deadline for when they have to start construction.
Well, like a subdivision approval, I think is good for a year or two.
And they're gonna pick the less restrictive.
A zoning permit, so like the self-storage facility, that's just 6 months. So you have 6 months to pull a building permit.
You couldn't say anything.
For us, there is no moratorium on that.
Yeah.
You cannot put
Yeah.
moratorium in place after.
Single family residential is protected under state law and you specifically cannot put a moratorium or stop the development and
Right.
specifically for amending regulations for it.
Like we did on tiny homes.
Curious to see some public comment on this, especially from them people up through there. They was there when the road went in. Some of y'all was, some of y'all wouldn't. It was, aggravating couple, 3 years. And they got paid minimal compared to what they're getting paid today. So I'm curious to see what those landowners think. If they want the rule, they're the ones living out there. Y'all are passing through. Let's make sure that's what they want. And I think we need to make sure that's what they want. And if that's what they want, I think we hurry as fast as we can to get it there. But let's see what the majority has to say. How are we gonna find that out is my question. Could we, I mean, can we,
I mean, when we do the UDO, again, there will be an extensive public outreach process, but what I'm thinking for this is something similar to like the Parks Master Plan outreach, postcards.
do you think, even before that, we got the power of Facebook, we got everything else. Why don't we try to set a special meeting just for that?
Mhm.
Unless the rest of us get the word out that we're thinking about doing this and we need some input sooner than later.
Well, it affects more than just the,
Exactly,
it affects those of
exactly.
us up north and South Mills River.
Mm-hmm,
It's a lot of people.
yeah. Let's try it and see what we get. If it won't hurt us to come in here and set a couple hours, and if 10 show up, that'll be great, but if 150 shows up, it'll even be better. We can at least get a feel for where the majority is with this. This is a big deal. I don't want to mess this up. This is a big deal for a long time, potentially. Let's make sure it's what the citizens want.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your input.
Okay.
Would it be feasible to send postcards out and stuff and do like a survey or?
Well,
I think we could hit it from all angles.
I think we hit it from
I
all
think we
angles.
can come up with a date. Staff can look at a potential mailing, and then obviously the social media website stuff is easy.
We could get lucky enough. That wouldn't work though, would it? I was about to say we might get, if there's a bunch of people coming, we might get to have it at the picnic shelter, but we don't have none of our audio stuff. It'll work like that, do we? So we'd have to do it here. Find us a date that works for everybody and let's try to make it happen.
Sounds
See,
good.
okay. Anything else before we move on? Hearing none? Okay, I think we're down to Mr. Austin to come up here and visit with us a minute. And we can either congratulate him on being a very smart man and not having to go through this anymore, or leave this with you, James. You get that. So, for your undivided attention for just a minute, I really appreciate everything you've done for the town and helping me as being my right-hand guy. I've got me a new one now. Okay. But anyway, I'd like to present you with this plaque for your dedicated service to the town of Mills River. And I appreciate you very much, and I'm sure the citizens of Mills River do as well. All right.
Thanks.
Let's get a good picture. Get a good picture. Ready? Here's it. You got an emotion or what? Thank you again. Oh. Now you're free to go eat, or you can listen to the rest of our staff's updates.
We
And
have-
if you want to hang out for just a couple of minutes, we'll be through here real pretty quick. And we've got cookies, and if you want to shake Randy's hand, we're going to make him stay a few more minutes.
Okay, clerk, when you get freed up, if you've got anything for us.
Staff is looking ahead to the end of the fiscal year and who's going to be in town for different purposes that we need. And also we have to have one meeting in July. So once you know your vacation schedules, particularly around the 4th, or in the last week of June, the first couple of weeks of July, would you please let us know? You can let Patty know. And that way we can schedule things like check signings and that one meeting we have to have for our tax collector.
Okay. Harley, anything else?
No, I think we're good.
All right, thank you. Parks and Rec.
Just a couple things very quickly. Just a reminder, if this rain will stop, we will have our fishing day, kids fishing day this Saturday. So we're really looking forward to that. We got rained out in March, so we're really hoping for better weather this Saturday. Just again, save the date for Mills River Day, May the 4th. We're gonna have a really great event that day. We do have still have a couple of vendor spaces. So if anyone knows any local art and craft vendors, things like that, we got a few spots left available that we're trying to get some more folks out there for. And just for the general public, next Thursday, weather dependent, we will be doing some playground maintenance. The sunshades will go up and we have a few minor repairs and painting to do. So the playground will be closed on Thursday. And lastly, I know Ms. Good said this, but I really want to thank the public, the council, my parks board for getting this parks master plan done on such a tight deadline. They did some amazing work. My staff did amazing work. Our consultants did amazing work. And I think we have a really great plan to move forward on that the public is really excited about. So it's really exciting for me, but we would not have been able to do that without my parks board, without this council, and without so much positive public input, which was great. So that was all I had for that.
Okay, Michael, Planning Director.
Mark Williams kind of stole my thunder, but Hollow is expanding. They're building a 9,600 square foot ag building on the side of the greenhouse there to support their operations. And then they are actually renovating the whole rear half of the greenhouse to expand the growing and research operations inside as well. So they're definitely ramping up. That's why you'll see all the heavy equipment and contractors out there. Staff did approve today the final plat for the townhome project. I know I said they were going to be going vertical really quickly this spring, but construction causes delays. But now that that's approved and with the Register of Deeds and those individual lots will be platted, we will start seeing zoning permits come in for those, I would say, in the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
So look for activity over there. That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Baldwin. You got
Yes,
anything?
sir. We're wrapping up the preliminary work on the budget on the inside. So we're extremely close there. You guys are getting the weekly reports, so we'll continue with those, give you a lot of detail. Your staff is productive, as you guys know, and I just was sitting here and just humbled by their competency and how much you care about your community. So it's good to be here. We'll continue to do things day to day.
Thank you, sir. All right, council comments. Anybody got anything?
I've got one matter I just want to share with the council, and it's regarding the park. I was out here on Monday, where it was raining, walking, and the annual clipping of the ditches had already occurred, and I wanted to sort of feel out the council, because I'd love to give direction to our parks director to, maybe let's manage them a little bit differently, in the sense that, I see on this expansion plan, we have nature and birding areas and all that stuff. Well, granted, that stuff's invasive, but a lot of that was great habitat for rabbits and birds and whatnot. And that's what a lot of folks have been seeking. They put it on the top 10 on that park expansion survey or input. And while I can understand maybe the drainage ditch between the big shelter and the multi-purpose fields over here for safety reasons and other, you want to keep that, groomed and mowed. But a lot of these, I think, rather than going on new property and trying to develop even more habitat, which was good, but maybe we shouldn't destroy as much over here. And so I don't think it's any official policy. I guess it's just been the way it's been managed. But I'd like to see us give a little more thought to how we manage some of those ditches. And we're creating pollinator habitat over here just last year. So, and being consistent, I think it would be better for our park, better for the users. And I think it'd be in keeping with what folks are saying they want out of the park if we manage these ditches a little bit different, not cut them down to the ground. So I just put that out there, but
Good idea.
Makes it easier to shag baseballs out of the ditch line, foul balls. I know that.
They become every year's Easter eggs after that.
Yeah.
Anything else? I mean, everybody got while we're into it, give any direction to Nicole on that for future years while we're into it, instead of bringing it back up? Personal, interest in that? What's your opinion?
I can tell you, I'm in very much agreement with Mr. Young on the environmental aspect. We do have a very passionate birding population around here. And they do get very upset with me every year that we do it, but it has always been, again, I don't think it was ever official policy, but at Chase out on some of those councils where there's always had been the direction to keep those ditches clean and mowed. Previously, it was done even more frequently than we've been doing it now. So we've been trying to keep to that once a year. We try to do it in the winter to have less impact on the habitat. This year, we can't even maintain the ditches as they are ourselves, so we rely on some very generous farmers in the community to help us do that. So it would be easier for them if we're not maintaining those ditches. But we do also have an invasive species problem, which is something that would have to be addressed.
That's
We
one.
have a major Bradford pear tree problem, so that's something. I met last week before we cut the ditches with Steve Pettis with Henderson County Extension, Maria West with the Mills River Partnership to kind of discuss that, because we did debate this year, because we couldn't get to it till later, if we should do it this year. And we did kind of have that discussion that it should be done so we can get those Bradford pears cut back and then try to treat them this summer when they're younger saplings. But what does happen with the Bradford pear trees, you cut it, and where you had one, now you have many. And it's going to be an ongoing battle here, but I do think it's something we can work to tackle and come up with a better plan and a better solution.
Okay.
So
We'll work on that. Let's figure out how we're gonna tackle that, and we'll move forward with that.
Is it at all feasible to like just mow the Bradford pears or like the woody? Or is that?
I mean, if you're driving with a bush hog, how do you go?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Ask yourself as an operator.
We have tried for the last 2 to 3 years to cut the Bradford pears, treat the stumps, but we just do not have the manpower to keep up and do that. And so this year we're going to try with the Bradford pears where we cut everything and while they're young saplings to try to really get them while they're young. And we're going to work on a volunteer day. So if anyone wants to come out and help us eradicate some Bradford pears this summer, I'll let you know a date on that. But no, it's not really practical for us to be able to just kind of cut down those invasives. We just don't have the manpower, the volunteer power to keep up with that. So.
Okay. Anything else? Any other council comments? Hearing none? Well, make a motion to adjourn, someone.
So moved.
Jeff, first, 2 seconds.
Second.
Shay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
we've organized all the mics, so just leave your mics where you